How you doing, guys? One thing about my life, nothing has ever really been consistent. When I tire of something, I simply stop doing it and move on to something else. And I've been like that since I was a kid. Now, this is one reason I never liked scouting, Little League, or any type of organized anything that would dictate that I had to be someplace at a certain time. Because I knew one day I was probably going to tire of it. And plus the fact I didn't like to be told I had to be somewhere at a certain time. Let's face it, when you're a kid, you got to go to school 5 days a week, certain time, day in, day out. When you're grown up, you got to go to work. You have certain responsibilities. So I never liked the idea of tying my time up. This is something I didn't consider when I started going to the Kingdom Hall, but at that point in time, I didn't realize just how controlling this organization was and how much time it actually would consume. I was in about 5 years before it started wearing on me, and I realized, okay, I want to move on and do something else. I realized that everything was virtually the same, week in, week out. The first thing that suffered wasn't the ministry, it was the conventions. Now, you can fake your way through the meetings, because all you have to do is go into a daydream mode and think about something else. You can fake your way through it, because any answer or any comment is written down somewhere anyways. Ministry hours, since nobody answered their doors at that time, you just go out, knock on a few doors, go the hell home. But the first thing I started avoiding were the conventions, especially after the first few, when you realize that this convention, this assembly, is no different than the one prior to it. The one last year, the 1 year before that. And yet you kept hearing about all this spiritual food, and you finally realized it's spiritual caca. I started avoiding the assemblies and the conventions. I would go to one every so often just to fake it. My ministry hours started slacking off big time. I would get out there once or twice a week after a while. Then I started missing meetings. Now, conversation is usually where they will get you. I was good at faking that. My thing was I was tiring of it, so all I wanted to do was just walk away from it. I could fake the conversation pretty well, so they really had nothing. But I started missing the meetings. I had one dodo in my congregation who started making a pain of himself, texting me. Now, we all know the circuit overseers every 3 years would have a new one. And once you've met the first few, you realize where they're all at. I mean, one circuit overseer is no different than the next. I had one guy texting me, telling me the new circuit overseer was going to be at our Kingdom Hall. Please try to be there. And then he slips in, Jehovah will now speak to us. And I'm thinking, okay, according to Watchtower, Jehovah's been speaking to us all along, hasn't he? And I started thinking, how is this circuit overseer any different than the last few? He wasn't. Well, this guy kept texting me and texting me and texting me. We had a convention coming up, and he kept pestering me about going there. And I really didn't respond to him. I was back and forth in work and stuff like that. And finally, he texted me and says, listen, we're working hard at this. And I'm like, working hard at what? And that's what I said, text back to him. Working hard at what? Trying to get you back at the meetings. I didn't ask you to pester me. And I text him back. I says, dude, you send another text like that again, you're going to end up wearing my foot in your ass. That didn't go over well because he went and cried about it like a baby, which was fine with me. If you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and you've already woken up and you're in this position now where you're faking it, faking your way through conversation, faking your way through the ministry hours, faking your way through the meetings, conventions, and all that hoo-ha, you can only fake it for so long. Eventually, it's going to slip up somewhere. But this is what to expect if they figure you're fading and you want out. The first thing they will try and find out, somebody will come visit you, who in the Kingdom Hall pissed you off? Basically, they'll phrase it, who in the hall offended you? See, this is a childish thing. I mean, let's face it. We're all little kids. Little Joey pisses us off, so we take our ball and we go home. And this is the mindset of Jehovah's Witnesses. They think the same way. Brother Butt Plug pissed me off, so I'm not going to go to the meetings. Kind of childish. If somebody pisses me off, I don't talk to them. I avoid them like the plague. I don't have to talk to anybody. And considering at this point in time I was mocked, I wasn't having much conversation in the hall anyways. But this is where they tried to go. Who in the hall offended you? See, usually when somebody is asked that, they'll think of somebody they don't like. Because let's face it, I don't care where in your life you go, whether at work, whether it's a club, whether it's a hangout, somebody eventually is going to piss you off. And the same thing happens at the hall, because let's face it, we all know most of Jehovah's Witnesses are total assholes anyways. So when somebody asks you that, somebody will mention a brother or a sister, and then they will give you the response, well, that's no reason to walk away from Jehovah, is it? And they will guilt you into coming back. More often than not, that's not the case. They tried that with me, but that wasn't the case with me. If I didn't like somebody, I simply didn't talk to them. After that, they will throw at you, well, have you been reading apostate literature? And Jehovah's Witnesses don't realize there's not an apostate company out there throwing out literature against Jehovah's Witnesses, against Mormons, against Scientology. What Jehovah's Witnesses don't realize that the best apostate literature is watchtower literature. Now, I had an extensive library dating back many, many decades, and it was their own literature that began to rattle me loose, and I'm like, whoa, I spotted a lot of stuff in their literature. And I even pointed that out. No apostate literature, unless you want to consider watchtower literature apostate, which it is every time they change it. I was basically told, it's best not to read the older literature because we've had a better understanding since then. Well, some of the modern literature isn't much better than the older one either. But this is the route they will try and go. The next thing they will accuse you of, if that doesn't work, is you must be doing something immoral. This one guy threw at me when he realized I wasn't going back. He figured I was leaving the organization so I could go out and have sex. The funny thing was, at this time, I was much, much older than I was when I went in. And I'm thinking to myself, why would I have to leave the organization just to get a piece of tail? But this is their way of thinking. You must be leaving the organization so you could do something immoral. And they will all think that. If Brother Buttplug didn't offend you, and you weren't reading apostate literature, you must be leaving to do something immoral. And I got news for you. Most Jehovah's Witnesses are in the organization doing immoral stuff and leading their own lives outside of the Kingdom Hall. So why would you have to leave to do that? But nonetheless, these are the things that they are going to throw at you, because let's face it, you're not going to be able to fake it forever, because eventually it's going to get under your skin when you realize that conversation never changes. Even if you diversify with the people that you go out and service with, which is what they like to push anyways, go out and service with different people. But it doesn't seem to matter, because all the conversation is the same. How many times have you been asked, what brought you into the truth? I've been asked that so damn many times that it was one ear and out the other. It was kind of stupid. It sounded stupid after a while. And most of the personalities were kind of idiots to begin with. But that's just something you want to look out for, because, like I said, some people can fake it for years on end. Others can only fake it for a few months. Towards the end, I was avoiding too much contact. I was avoiding conversation. And I would keep to myself. But the thing is, it was that silence that got them thinking that there was a problem. Because there were times where Vinny is very talkative. There are other times I don't feel like talking at all. And this is one thing they couldn't understand. There are days I'd just like to be left in my own zone. But when you're not talking, there must be a problem. If you're not spilling your guts, there must be a problem. And I was never really big on spilling my guts anyways, because information is something they'll only use somewhere down the line. So they never really had anything to go on. But after a while, even the best faker they're going to see through it. But those are things to look out for. If you're in because you have family, consider one thing. If your family's not waking up because of things you're telling them or things you're showing them, just remember, not everybody wakes up at the same time. And some people are never going to wake up. If you look around the halls, they are starting to get very depleted. Now that it's an online religion, pretty much, it's probably going to go more so where people are going to walk away. It'll be a lot easier to at that point. But just remember, you can't make people wake up. You can't force them to wake up. They have to do it on their own. If your being in the organization is causing you problems, there's going to come a day where you're going to have to just walk away from it. But keep in mind, as far as disassociation letters, you do not have to write a disassociation letter, because that's admitting that they have authority over you. Do what I do, simply walk away. They're not going to like it, and they're going to tell you you can't just do that. But who's going to stop you? Just walk away. If you just don't stay in for the sake of your friends or your family, because eventually it's going to cause you more problems. They're not going to see it until they're ready to. Anyways, guys, that's all I wanted to bring to your attention. I'd appreciate your comments, and thanks for stopping by. I will talk to you soon. You guys have a good day.